Hari Om. In our first two sessions in this series, we discussed about the meaning of the word Purusha. We also saw that it represents the Sankalpa Shakti, that is the Shirsha, the Darshan Shakti, vision, Aksha, and Kriya Shakti, feet, path, not only for one or two people, for the entire universe. Sahasra, not in the meaning thousand, it is a couple of thousands, infinite, many, many, many. That's the meaning. He pervades the entire creation, envelops it, and also exceeds it. And the first mantra described all this. It said, Sahasra Shirsha Purusha, Sahasraksha Sahasrapad, Sabhumim Vishwato Vrutva, Atyatishtat Dashangulam. This entire creation of the past, the present, and the future has come about by him only. He is the ultimate controller of everything, and he transcends, he rises above the entire creation. Purusha evedagum sarvam, yad bhutam yaccha bhavyam, utam rutatva seshano, yadanne natirohati. All this represents only his glory and of no one else. The visible world is only a small portion of him, and a large portion forms the heavenly realm, which we cannot even comprehend. एतावानस्य महिमा अतो जायांश्च पुरुष पादोस्य विश्वा भूतानि त्रिपादस्यामृतम दिवि. A large part of him rises above the visible and comprehensible universe, while a small part manifests again and again, punah punaha, in the form of the living as well as the non-living components of the known universe, and he pervades all creation. त्रिपादूर्ध्व उदयत पुरुष पादोस्येह भवत पुनः ततो विश्वं व्यक्रामत शासना अशने अभि. Those who eat and those who don't eat. He is the bimba. He is the image of all of those things. I mean, they are his image. While interpreting these mantras, we have seen that all these assertions are true at the cosmic level, at the level of the Brahmanda, and as well at the level of the individual, Pinda. Our scriptures say that at the end of a kalpa, Chaturmukha Brahma completes 100 years of his age and the universe gets dissolved and the Mahavishnu enters state of Yoga Nidra. Similarly, modern cosmology predicts the end of the universe in three possible ways before a new beginning is made. Namely, it is called the Big Freeze, the Big Crunch, and the Big Rip. In the case of the Big Freeze, here you see the Big Freeze here, the blue line. The universe we know is expanding and it continues to expand indefinitely. Though the rate of expansion slows down, the stars eventually burn out all their fuel and leave only small black holes. The black holes also ultimately evaporate, leaving only stray particles of light. The universe becomes increasingly cold and dark. Eventually, it reaches the temperature of absolute zero. In the case of the Big Crunch, you see the green line here, Big Crunch, the expansion of the universe eventually stops and reverses, causing it to collapse back on itself. There is something known as the great attractor in modern astronomy, and it is something, some big, huge mass towards which all galaxies are being continuously attracted. So they are pulled together. The gravitational pull of the matter in the universe becomes so strong when there is the great attractor that everything collapses there. It shrinks into a singularity and again goes to the original state. The third possibility is a big rip. You see this yellowish orange line here. In the case of the big rip, the accelerating expansion due to dark energy continues and becomes so strong that it tears apart everything. It tears galaxies and individual atoms also become so big that they are torn apart. The electrons get torn apart from the protons, from the nucleus. So everything is ripped apart. So that is a big rip. And they say the Big Bang, whether it happened or not, the estimates are it happened about 14 billion years ago. And they say the big rip, if it happens, will happen somewhere about 22 billion years hence. Now, this is something very close to what we read in our Purana. They say Chaturmukh Brahma, every year when the Panchang is read, they say Chaturmukh Brahma has completed 50 years of his life. He is now in the 51st year. So the cosmology, new cosmology also telling the same thing. We have completed almost half of this creation and another half kalpa is remaining. So this again says padosyeha bhavat puna puna. This again and again repeats at the cosmic level. At the level of the pinda, the Purusha rises. This is true at the level of the pind also, at each individual level. Each of us is like a Brahmanda in ourselves. The Purusha takes three steps. Trivikrama. One is those three huge steps on the universe. And within you also it takes three steps. Because we read Tripad Urdhva Udait Purusha. He takes three steps and rises above. From where? From the Nabhi to the Hridaya is one step. And from Hridaya to the Kanthamula is another step. And then from Kanthamula to the Bhrumadhya is the third step. And if you see, they refer to the chakra. The Nabhi is the Manipur chakra, Hridaya is Anahat chakra, and Kanthamula is Vishuddhi, and Ajna chakra is near the Bhrumadhya. So the three steps he takes are Manipur to Anahat, Anahat to Vishuddhi, and Vishuddhi to Ajna. And then beyond Ajna chakra, when he crosses the Sahasrara chakra, that we call in common language death. He crosses by Dwadashangula above that. And then what happens? He again enters various bodies through the food chain. How this is a theory given in, this is a concept given in our Puranas that the food chain, what we eat, food itself is not living, but when we consume our food, lot of jivas they get consumed with it, and they enter the food chain. And what happens to it thereafter? The food mixes with prana, and it forms the sapta dhatus. It forms rasa, rakta, mausa, medha, asthi, majja, and shukra or artava, depending on the gender. And a lot of the jivas, they just get wasted out. It is something like they have passed through hell, actually. That is actually what is happening. And some of them, the lucky one, he gets through the Shukra, he again comes back into life. So he is again doing Padasyeha Bhavat Punah Punah. So even at the micro level, he is doing this again and again. He is taking rebirth and is coming. And that topic of hell and heaven, when we say the jiva goes through hell, it is so many of those jivas which enter our body, do not take birth, they pass off through as waste, through mala. So that is actually the hell through which the jiva is going and is taking rebirth again and again. So what is explained in the Purusha Sukta is true at the cosmic level and it is true at the level of every living thing. So let's now move on to today's shloka and let's read it. Tasmad viral ajayata virajo adhipurusha sajato atyarichyata paschad bhumimatho pura. So I have shown a huge symbolic artist impression of Virat Purusha. So what does it mean? We'll see the word meaning first and then see the actual meaning and interpretations. Tasmad Virat Ajayata. From him was born Virat. Now I have said Virat here, it is Virat. We'll discuss that a little later. Virat is actually Virat and Jan Ajayata is the past tense of to be born. Jan is the original root word. Viraja is to rule, shine brilliantly. And Adhi, to be on top, so to be controlling. Jato, born. Atyarichyata. Ati is to step across, cross, and richyata, freeze or over, releases, gives up. That is atyarichyata. Paschad bhumi matho. That means Paschad is later on. Bhumi matho Virat. He manifested the earth, remaining as the substratum. He remained at the bottom of this and he manifested the earth. Here, earth means the complete universe itself. Paschad has got two meanings. It is behind, it also means later. Bhumi is earth as well as the complete universe. Atha is moreover. And Pura means city, it means our bodies, it also means manifestation. That is also Pura. Now, let's see the meaning of this. From him, from whom the Adi Purusha was born Virat Purusha, the immense universal form. Making this Virat as the base, another Purush was born from him, and that is commonly known as Brahma, the Chaturmukha Brahma. After he was born, he multiplied himself, and later he created the earth, enveloped it, and formed all the bodies of all the beings in this universe. So that is how Virat, another Purush came, the Brahma came, and some other people also came, which we will have a look as we discuss in detail. And then the rest of the universe came about. Now, the word Virat, it also appears as Virat, as I said earlier. In Yajurveda, it is used as Virat, but in Rigveda, it is used as Virat. As per Panini, who is a grammarian for Sanskrit, the sound R, as in Kale, is not an independent letter in Sanskrit. This only exists in Marathi, this letter. So, but however, it exists as a Matruka. Matrukas, each letter is supposed to be a Matruka when you do Tantra Sadhana. So it exists, this sound exists as a Matruka in Tantra Sahitya. Now, there are conventions in Rigveda where T has to be replaced by L. We will not go into the details of those conventions because that will go into some grammar conventions of Rigveda. But in short, whenever T is immediately followed by a vowel, then T is changed to L. Virat Ajayata. So after T, you have got a vowel sound So it becomes Virat Ajayata in Rigveda only. So that is not in Yajurveda. The previous mantra declared that the Purusha pervaded this entire universe. It said Vishwam Vakramat, and this mantra elaborates the same idea. From the Purusha, who pervades everything, came forth Viraj. We saw that. Now, from this Viraj came another Purush, we said, who manifests himself as the material world and envelops it on all sides. Now, this mantra gives in brief the chain of creation, what all happened. As we said earlier, the Purusha is nothing but the Onkar itself. Even in the Genesis, in the Bible, it is said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So even Abrahamic religions say that in the beginning it was only the Word which was God. In Bhakti Marga, you say Nam. In analysis, Vedanta, you say Omkara. So that is how it is. Omkara itself was God in the beginning, was the Purusha in the beginning. The Om sound represents also the word Ota. Ota means to be oven. So Ota Prota in Marathi we say Ota Prota is filled to the brim. So Ota means you woven into the creation. So the Purusha is woven into the creation right up to the brim. There's nothing left, not a single place where he is not there. That is the implication of saying that Om itself was the Purusha. And now in the form of his Ota, he is filling the complete creation. When there was absolutely nothing, there was only Omkara Swarup Narayana, who was a Purusha. And he was residing in Nara. Nara means water. But Nara is not water in the sense as we understand it. Because when we say Jala, okay. So when we say Jala, we will say, okay, this is one of the Pancha Mahabhutas, Prithvi, Jala, Agni, Vayu. So this is not that Jala. Now, एक minute. Okay. Now this because the Panchabhutas came much later, in late stage of creation. They evolved from something called the Tanmatras. Now these Tanmatras are five subtle foundational elements described in the Sankhya school of philosophy. They represent the building blocks of sensory experience and the material world itself. The Tanmatra, they are the Sparshabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, and Gandha. That is sound, touch, vision, taste, and smell. The Panchabhuta associated with each of these are with Shabda, Akasha is associated because Akasha is an inert object. You can't smell it, you can't touch it, you can't taste it, you can't hold it in your hand. So the only thing that is associated with Akasha is sound, Shabda. After this comes Vayu, which can be associated with touch also. Vayu, you can hear the flowing of wind, and at the same time, you can feel it. So, the next bhuta which came along, it has the earlier one, and the next tanmatra is also associated with it. If you go in this sequence, you see that the next jala, jala is associated with sound, it is associated with touch, but it is also associated with rasa, taste. So you can feel jala, you can taste jala. After this comes, no, I said I missed out something. Fire comes before this. You can't taste fire, you can see it. Then comes jala, and lastly comes prithvi, because prithvi, all the sensory perceptions can feel prithvi. You can smell it. So that's also why it is called Gandhavati. Now, this story does not end here because all these five elements are still in their Sukshma form. They are Bhuta only, they are not Mahabhuta still. Now, why I am going into this detail is in one of the later mantras, there will have to be a distinction between Antariksha, Akasha, Bhutakasha. So, to understand that difference, I am going into a little detail here. Now, what happens is this is followed by a process called Panchikarana. Now, this process of Panchikarana, it mixes up all these elements. Now, and they become then useful to build up the material world. Now, in this Panchikarana process, I'll just say each bhuta is divided into two equal halves. Let us say there is Prithvi. Prithvi gets divided into two equal halves. Now, this happens to all the elements. Then each of those elements get divided into four parts. So I have four of this and I've got half of each. So now what happens is you take half of Prithvi, add 1/8 of Akash, 1/8 of Jala, 1/8 of Vayu, and 1/8 of Agni. So this becomes the Pancha Mahabhut called Prithvi. This is done similarly for everything. So what it means is every Pancha Mahabhuta has got a little bit of everything else. And this is the major implication we'll be discussing sometime later. So before all this happened, before the Pancha Mahabhuts were created, there was not even space. So Narayana, he created a shoreless ocean of space and time, which for convenience we call Nara, and call it close to water because it is something like an ocean. Now he was resting there and he pervaded everything. His desire to create, the Purusha's desire to create, manifested in the Brahmanda through his Rajoguna. All creation, all action takes place only through the Rajoguna. and he pervaded everything. The Brahmanda is nothing but the Nabhi Kamal of the Purush. That is how, in the artist description also, you see Mahavishnu lying down, and through the Nabhi Kamal, you see the Chaturmukh Brahma sitting there. So the complete Brahmanda is supposed to be the Nabhi Kamal of this Purush. Now, from him, from the Nabhi Kamal of the Purush, emerged Virat. Tasmad Viral Ajayata. And Virat pervaded the Brahmanda and he exercised mastery over it. Adi Virajata. That's how it said Virajo Adi Purusha. Even in Vishnu Sahasranam, Ramo Viramo Virajo is one of the names of Vishnu because he is actually ruling over everything. If you notice in this particular mantra, Adhipurusha, the Pu is Dirgha, it is not Rasva. So the reason is you want this mantra stresses the importance of Purusha in creation. That is how it is made Dirgha, Purusha, Adhipurusha. Now Virat he further multiplied himself. And then what he did? Sajato Atyarichyata. He crossed over and released himself, manifested as everything in this universe. And later the earth. He created the earth and created the cities. Cities meaning Pura, meaning the bodies of living things, and entered all the beings as their Antaryami. So we have the So that's how it is said, Pasyad Bhumi Matho Pura. The words Pura and Pasyad also mean fore and aft. One is later and earlier. The second meaning is fore and aft. So he created the earth and he enveloped it from the front side, rear side. He enveloped it from all sides. That is the meaning of Pasyad Bhumi Matho Pura. Fore and aft in space and fore and aft also means in time. So we have the Adi Purusha who creates the Brahmanda. We are seeing the chain now. Then the Virat from whom the world and all the beings emerge. And the Antaryami Purusha who resides in all the beings. Now let us see this in a little more detail. Now from the Chaturmukha Brahma who was sitting in that Nabhi Kamal emerged three Purushas. Who are these three Purushas? The Veda Purusha represented by Garuda, the Chandas Purusha, represented by Shesha, and the Sharira Purusha, represented by Shiva or Rudra. These are the three facets of creation. The three facets are the physical aspect, Sharira, knowledge aspect, Veda, and cultural aspect, Chandas. That is how Rudra is also called Tat Purusha, because all the physical aspects have come to us from Rudra. The Panchabhutas came from the Tat Purusha because, as I said, physical aspects come from the Rudra, from the Panchanana Shiva through his Tamoguna, because all matter is associated with Tamoguna. Now, the five faces of Shiva, they are also related to each of the Pancha Mahabhuta. The four in the four cardinal directions, east facing, north facing, west and south facing, and one upwards. The face which faces upwards is called Ishana. So that is related to the Akasha principle. The face which faces east, that is called Tat Purusha. It is related to air. The one which faces south is called Aghora. It is called uh, it is associated with fire. The one which faces north is called Vamadeva. It is associated with water. And the one which faces west is called Sadyojata. This is called this is related to the earth principle. So these five names are also used in the Laghu Rudra. Rudra is praised with these five names also. Now from the Panchabhuta came the material world. And they say Rudra is therefore associated with the Annamaya Kosha. Garuda, Shesha is supposed to be resident of the Pranamaya Kosha, and Garuda is supposed to be the resident associated with the Manomaya Kosha. And beyond all this, beyond this Kosha, And beyond this kosha, we have got Vijnanamaya kosha. So the Chaturmukha Brahma is associated with the Vijnanamaya kosha. And beyond all this, Purusha, Adi Purusha is there. He is the one who is Sriman Narayana. He resides in the Anandamaya kosha. He is associated with it. Now, Swayambhuva Manu being the physical aspect, and all the animals and beings being the physical aspect, they came from Rudra, the Tat Purusha, and everything descends from them. All our beings, all creatures, everything descends from Swayambhuva Manu, from the Rudra. The food that we eat is Ahuti for the Agni that is inside us. And that is how our body is undergoing a yajna. And when it does the yajna, it develops those sapta dhatus to maintain our body. So the process of creation of the universe is also similar to that because Pinda and Brahmanda are parallel. So creation of the universe is also a yajna like we are eating the food. So the next mantra which we are going to consider describes how this whole creation is a yajna in itself. Let us read this. Yat Purushena Havisha Deva Yajnamatanvat Vasanto Asya Dajam Grishma Idma Sharad Havi. So it is said all this creation is a yajna. So what kind of yajna? What are the details? Is what we are going to go into the details henceforth in the subsequent mantras. Yat Purushena with Purusha. Yad is which and Purushena is Purushse. Havish is the offering which you give to the fire. Devaha, they are the shining ones. Div is to shine. Devaha, those who shine. Yajna Matanvata continued the sacrifice of Yajna. He continued the sacrifice of creation. So Yajna is the sacrifice. Tan is to extend or continue. And Vasanta is spring season. Asya Sidajam. That means Asya, I will give the breakup. He was the butter for this clarified butter, ghee, for this yajna. Asya, he is. As, he became. And Ajja, clarified butter, ghee. And Grishma, that is the summer season, it became Idma, fuel. Sharad Havi, Sharad season, autumn season became the Havish, which is given as a sacrificial oblation into the fire. So that is how it became. This is the description of this particular yajna. Now, Sharad is the autumn season with Purush as the Havi. So the Purush himself became the Havi. And who did this yajna? The Devas did this yajna. And they continued. Matanvata, Yajna Matanvata. So they continued doing the Yajna. Purusha started this, and the Devas continued this Yajna with the Purusha himself as the sacrificial offering. And what was in this sacrificial offering? The spring season became the ghee, that is the clarified butter. Summer became the Indhan, fuel, and autumn became havi, that is that powdery material which you put into the yajna, sacrificial offering. So the first five mantras which we saw till now, they spoke about phase one of the creation. It is called Purva Srushti. And this mantra, now the sixth mantra, and beyond this, it speaks about something called Uttara Srushti. Now, the development of the universe itself is a yajna, as I said earlier. And now it was started by Purusha, and now the responsibility for this yajna, it came to the Deva, who came into being in the earlier phase, in the Purusha, in the Purva Srishti. Now, Deva, they resolved to continue to perform the yajna. They said we have to continue this because the Purusha has tasked us to do this. So, Yat Purushena Havisha Deva Yajna Matanvata. So, Devas continued the yajna with the Purusha himself being used as the Havish. Now, this yajna is in the nature of a sankalpa. They resolved. Now, they resolved to do this yajna. And why are they called devas? Because they shine on their own. Now, let us take a little diversion here and let us compare the description in modern science and what is said here. Now, here what we have said, initially the Devas were formed, and from the Devas, the rest of the universe came into being. Let us see what science tells us today. Now, Now, as per the theory of cosmology, there is not even space when the universe started. Nasadasi no sadasi tat tadanim. There was neither sat or asat. There was no space. So, as we said earlier, all those space, Agni, fire, they came along. There was only the singularity, Narayan. In modern science, you call singularity. In Vedanta, you call it Narayana. So space forms after the Big Bang and there is sudden expansion. It fills up everything. And what happens here? Virat comes from the Purusha. Tasmad Virat Ajayata. And it covers the entire earth, Bhumi, Vishwa from all sides. See, the Brahmanda has formed and now Vasudeva is creating fundamental particles like quarks, leptons and photons in modern science. So what exactly is he doing? The universe cools down, and then the Nabhi Kamala blooms with Chaturmukh Brahma doing the Srushti Nirmana. So in the Purva, so in the uh, earlier phase, all these small particles, the Devas were formed. And now what is happening after the Brahma comes, subatomic particles are forming beyond that. It is a step-by-step comparison of both the scientific process and that explained in the Purusha Sukta. Now, there are four fundamental forces: gravity, electromagnetism, strong nuclear force, and weak nuclear force. And before the Big Bang, before the expansion started, they were all one. Similarly, there was only Narayana at the beginning. And what happened once he started doing this? He had a he had a view of creation. That view of creation, Narayana differentiated into Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Now, the work that these four do is exactly same like the four fundamental forces. Similarly, after the Big Bang, these four fundamental forces separate. And the next stage is something called the nucleosynthesis. Pradyumna, that is a strong nuclear force. It holds the nuclei together. The electroweak force, represented by Anuruddha, leads to pairing of electrons. Earlier, there are only particles, protons and electrons. Now, that doesn't make the universe matter. To bring them together, you require Anuruddha. The electroweak force pairs them and forms an electrically neutral atom. And through those atoms, the universe can continue to build. See, such a nice step-by-step comparison tells us that the Purusha is doing exactly what our science is telling now at this late stage. The force of gravity is represented by Sankarshana. So all these small particles which are spread all over the universe, Sankarshana, he attracts everything. So the gravity started attracting everything, pulling together. And then what happened? It forms huge stars. And when it crunches everything, gravity crunches everything, and then when it crunches everything, the fusion starts because it is pumping, packing all the protons and neutrons together. So the fusion starts. When the fusion reaction starts, the stars light up. So Divi, they shine. So Devas are formed initially. So this is exactly how the process is there. So now after the Devas are formed, how the rest of the universe is formed. So we must understand how elements are formed, how elements are formed from the stars. When the when the fusion continues, if it is a very big star, then the fusion continues to make elements up to number 56, that is iron. And then what happens is these forces of Pradyumna and Aniruddha, they oppose this gravity, Sankarshana, and then the whole star explodes. It becomes a supernova and throws out all the elements. So all the elements are created by the Devas and they're thrown out. And then they spread in the universe. So our bodies are actually stardust. We are made up of that stardust made from the devas. The devas literally made us if we compare it one by one. So devas are formed and various elements are formed by fusion. So in short, the what is happening in the stars is yajna. The devas are doing a yajna where there is tremendous heat and tremendous all the elements are being generated. Now this whole process is symbolically described as a yajna in Purusha Sukta. So there is symbolism even in the details of this Manasa Yajna by Devas. If you compare it in detail, it fits into place each bit by bit. Now, the Purusha himself is the sacrificial offering because what is being crunched by Sankarshana is those small fundamental particles which were made, and that himself is being offered into the fire. In the Shatapatha Brahmana, it says, Samvatsaro vai yajna prajapati. Samvatsara is yajna. He himself is yajna, and he himself is the offering in that. So, if the whole year is the yajna and the whole year is the offering, then what are those small bits in that year? Now let us see. The parts of the Samvatsara are also symbolic parts of this yajna. So the first line is Vasanto Asyasi Dajyam Grishma Idma Sharad Havi. So what it means is spring is the kindler of the fire, is the Agnidhara. The summer, Grishma, is the Advaryu, is the chief fire tender. The rainy season is the singer of the Sama, Udgatra. And the autumn, Sharad, is the master of the ceremonies, Brahma. Now, what is the fuel? If this exactly the yajna like this symbolically, then what is that clarified butter ghee? Then, and what is this samidha? What is the havish in this? So those details are like this. The spring denotes emergence of new life and everything is in plenty. Animals have plenty to eat and there is plenty of milk and ghee. So symbolically, Vasanta itself is considered as ghee for this Srishti Yajna. Vasanto Asyasi Dajjam. There is plenty of firewood in the summer, in the Grishma summer. So Grishma Idma, that is Indan. There is plenty of grain in the near the Sharadiya Navratra. So the Havish, the Dhanya which you put in the Yajna, is the Sharad Rutu itself. Hence Sharad Havihi. So yajnas are performed generally in the Rutus of Vasanta, Grishma and Sharad Rutu as suggested by Shrauta Sutra. That is again the reason for this. Now these three seasons, they also symbolize three periods of the day and three states of the Purusha. The Vasanta is supposed to be Purhana, where the sun is rising and the Purusha is growing. And Grishma is represented by the noon, where it dries up everything. And Sharad Rutu is represented by the evening, because that is fed into the yajna as a havish. So you see there is full symbolism in everything. The Sharad Rutu is a symbolic representation of being offered into the yajna. So we have seen what we have been trying to understand is the story of creation through Purusha Sukta. We matched it to the Sankhya philosophy, we matched it to modern science. But our system has got many paths to lead to the same truth. Even Bhakti Marga has got similar concepts. But then in Bhakti Marga, the mood and the words used is different. In the Vithala takes place of Purusha in Bhakti Marga. What is Purusha in Vedantic discussion becomes Vithala. And what you call the universe, it becomes Ghata, it becomes pot. So if a Bhakti Margi had to explain the same thing, then he would say, Vithala, tu Veda Kumbhar. Because if you read those lines, it is Mati Pani, Ujeda Vara, Tooth misal is sarva pasara. You mix up everything and create this universe. So this is what exactly is described in the Purusha Sukta, and we have drawn parallels to the Sankhya, the modern as well as the Bhakti. Since we have drawn the parallel to Bhakti at the end, we can end this session listening to this nice song which I just mentioned.
त्याचा कावरती देशी मातीला आकार विठ्ठला तू वेडा कुंभार विठ्ठला तू वेडा कुंभार माती पाणी उजेड वारा तूच मिसळसी सर्व पसारा माती पाणी उजेड वारा तूच मिसळसी सर्व पसारा आभाळच मग ये आकारा तुझ्या घटांच्या उतरडीला नसे अंत ना पार तू वेळा कुंभार विठ्ठला तू वेळा कुंभार.
So, Pranam, thank you very much.